Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Charlie Bengel Jr., CEO of Remax Allegiance, and welcome to another edition of the Allegiance Way Show and the Daily Dose. My co-host, as usual, is Coach Amy Lassen. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Always good to see you. We continue with our Dominate series, and today we're going to be talking about routines. So how do you want to kick this off?
Oh, my goodness. I suppose we could just jump in. I always love to give a little disclaimer. And I've been listening to the book Atomic Habits, which is really top of mind for me right now. And one of the things that he said in Atomic Habits is your goals don't really take you anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Your goals may set the tone for the systems that you put in place, right? The routines that you follow. But the goal in and of itself probably won't get you there. And so many people are goal oriented. And he said the issue with goals is you set a goal, you achieve it, then you fall off your habits. Finish the marathon. Now I'm done being in shape, right?
Right.
And so he said it's essential that you fall in love with the process. And that it's the routine itself that you're committed to. So he said the routines and the systems, those are the things that will take you absolutely everywhere. The goal will take care of itself.
I like that. So Atomic Habits.
Yes.
And who's the author?
James Clear.
James Clear. Interesting. So when I talk to agents and they're like, I'm down in the dumps, I'm not motivated, I didn't prospect last week, right? You ask more questions, but often it's because they don't have a powerful routine, or what I see more often, especially with people that are, in paid coaching, and they're, they're committed almost because they're also paying too, right? There's that whole piece of it, right? They want to get some value out of this dollar that they're spending. It's because they got off of the routine. They stopped doing the gratitudes. They slept in, and sleeping in every once in a while is okay, I suppose, if you're not feeling well or whatever. But you don't want that to become your new routine. And when you're just not feeling it, when you're feeling down in the dumps, when you're feeling almost in a way ungrateful, and that may not be a fair statement, but writing out those gratitudes, I just think there's nothing better. And we're going to be talking about gratitudes as part of our routine. There's really nothing better to change our mindset.
Yeah.
And I have an exercise that I do with a friend every evening, and he's like, pick one savor and 5 gratitudes for the day. And I text him, and he stole that from, there's a course that I think is free through Harvard on happiness. Have you heard of this course? It's like the most popular course.
It's Yale.
At Yale, thank you. And you can take it for free online. And this is one of the exercises that they discuss is, reflecting on your gratitudes, and in this case, saviors, at the end of the day. I prefer doing it at the beginning of the day to get my head right for the rest of the day. But, it probably doesn't matter when you do it, as long as you do it. Right. And sometimes, when you're caught like in a long line, I was in a long line earlier today. I was telling you about that, right? I happened to be in my car at the time, but, and I really wasn't, really as annoyed as perhaps I could have been when the system crashed at this drive-thru and it took me longer than it should have been to get my chicken.
Sure.
But, sometimes when I do get aggravated, I'll be like, at least I'm comfortable. I'm in an air-conditioned car. I have the ability to buy this chicken, right? It can snap yourself right back into the right perspective.
Yeah.
So let's get into, let me share my screen.
By the way, the name of the class is The Science of Well-Being. It is offered free from Yale, and it is through Coursera. Anyway.
Coursera. And that apparently is the most popular course at Yale, is my understanding. So, I would recommend checking that out. So I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit here, so we're going to start with the daily $1 million checklist. And if we have time, we can be talking about, other weekly and perhaps monthly routines. But, one of the important pieces is waking up, at the same time every day. And I would say at a reasonable time every day. I am not a morning person, but I get up fairly early. And the reality is you can just get so much more done if you get up earlier. And, we've heard so many gurus say, if you want to get to your goal, instead of getting up at 7, just try getting up at 6:30, right? 6:30, get up at 5:30, right? Yeah. So as I switch screens here and try to zoom in, talk to me about wake up times and
Well,
routines in general.
I have one more mindset shift, one more sort of disclaimer as we jump into the nitty gritty of this. And I've heard this from other efficiency experts that people like me, high expressives like me, tend to resist routine. You know,
Okay.
I'm a free spirit. You
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
I don't want to get bored.
Yep.
And we can talk about what happens when real high achieving, driven expressives get bored. We can talk about that, and that's a real problem.
Yeah.
But putting the basics into a routine is not the recipe for boredom, it's the recipe for sanity. And there's another really extraordinary book and author and movement called Getting Things Done. And the whole GTD system, David Allen says, our brains were not meant for mass storage of unlimited data. It's not what they were for, right? We, 200 years ago, when your job was either to raise 7 children or milk cows, it wasn't that much to remember every day.
Right.
And now it's like, how many updates to your phone? How many new types of CRMs? Oh my goodness, now it's COVID, completely different way of doing virtual real estate. There's new technology all the time, and there is more than we can learn. So trying to memorize it all and shaming yourself for having a bad memory, I say it's like mislabeling boxes and shoving them in your attic. Like, it's just a terrible way to expect yourself to function. So David Allen says, quit remembering things and write them all down. All. This is your creative problem solver. It's not mass storage. So this is what we're giving you. We're giving you a routine that will free you up to function on autopilot on the things that don't require creative problem solving, so that you have the brain energy left for that.
I like it. So wake up times. What do you think?
Well, you said it. I mean, most productivity experts say earlier is better, and some people say that's not me. I'm a night person. I think until you've really tried it, you don't know. And I used to be a night owl, and then I was a morning person, and I've kind of adapted to my situation, and I've done it numerous times, and maybe I'm unique. But until you've tried something for a long time with real intention, I don't think you know. And most successful people wake up early, have some time to themselves, get focused, and get going.
Right. I like it. Complete Miracle Morning. We've talked about it on the show before, right? One of my favorite books, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, Elrod, Elrod. Easy peasy read. He's got like 20 versions. You don't need to get the one for real estate. You don't need to get, all these specialty versions. Just get the original Miracle Morning is where I would start.
Correct.
And from that, this Daily $1 Million Checklist, some of that is born from the Miracle Morning, and some of it we just got elsewhere, right? So meditation, prayer, silence, etc., right, all falls under that same group. I've talked about the Headspace app before for helping you train yourself to be able to meditate, because doing it on your own, if you've not done it before, I found to be very challenging, right? Your brain gets interrupted with ideas or things that you need to do or sounds or whatever. And the Headspace app, the guy just kind of talks you through that, right? Acknowledge it and let it go, right? Don't try to ignore it.
Yeah.
So we don't want to spend tons of time there. But, the Miracle Morning has 6 different pieces. The author, Hal Elrod, again, he advocates for spending 10 minutes on each. So in this case, it would be 10 minutes of meditation, prayer, etc. Anything to add to meditation?
No, well, the thing that I'm going to add to everything we're going to talk about is, if you feel overwhelmed when we're done, please take one. Look at how much you could accomplish in a year, and really be methodical about adding something. If meditation is something that you've always thought would probably benefit you, then really commit to doing that. And don't commit to doing it at the same time you decide to train for your marathon, completely rewrite your business plan, hire 2 new buyer's agents, and take on a farm. It's a recipe to just burn out. So that's what I would say, is all these are possible a little at a time.
And even if you think I'm not a meditation person, I would encourage you to try it, because I didn't think I was a meditation person either. Write out gratitudes, journal. We just talked about that. Anything to add when it comes to gratitudes or journaling? I mean, journaling is mentioned twice here. I think goals and gratitudes are super important. A lot of us have goals. Maybe we wrote it down one time in the business plan, and then it's back into the drawer since December. Others talk about having goals front and center on your bathroom mirror, on your vision board, right? I mean, all over. And if you start seeing these things all over, then suddenly actually start to appear in real life.
Well, the thing that I think about gratitude is you only have so much bandwidth, right? There's only so much you can think about or process or learn or hold into your headspace at a time. And when you choose to fill your head with negativity or blame, and we're all guilty of it. It's not my fault, it's the market. It's not my fault, it was the other agent. My client's unreasonable. We've all heard it. Buyers are liars. That isn't true. And so when you have a daily routine of focusing on your gratitude, you're just filling what little daily conscious space you have with good things rather than negative things. And now you get to drive. When you're in control of how you feel and how you see the world, you're in control of your life and your business.
I like it. Talk to me about affirmations.
Oh my goodness, this is super controversial, Charlie, and we did not prep for that, because I've heard people like, now I'm going to struggle, who wrote I can't remember the name of the book, super famous. So a lot of people believe that if you say it, it'll become true. Yep. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between what is and what could be.
Right.
And so when I say I am a successful real estate agent, I am proactive with lead generation every day, I encourage my children to make a difference, I eat healthy food. If you say it over and over and over and over, your subconscious doesn't know the difference, and it really starts to become your internal script. Think about anything maybe negative anybody said about you when you were a child,
right?
That you internalized. I knew a little girl whose dad always told her he was a klutz, which is a very sad story, but he was a kind of a jerk of a guy.
Yeah.
And he was so hard on this one child and overcoming that perception of herself. And she wasn't. I don't know where he got that. You know, that you should say that to someone who trips anyway. But anything that you're saying to yourself is becoming your reality. So affirmations can be so powerful. I've heard other experts say saying something about yourself that isn't true is counterproductive.
Right. I've heard the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. That's so.
I don't buy it, by the way. I don't buy it. Personally, I don't buy
it's counterproductive.
It can be counterproductive. That's not me. I mean, people can watch this show and, form their own opinions, obviously. But
I think maybe again, we're being all or nothing about this when we're choosing between an expert. Maybe if I say I make $40 million a year and I work 1 hour a day,
right?
That's just crap. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe they're saying if you use as an affirmation something that's so bizarre and so out of reach that you don't have a way to bridge that,
right?
That's counterproductive.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. Visualization. So I like this short-term or long-term. A lot of athletes use this, right?
Yep.
It's spring training, but you know what? I'm picturing myself, as the last batter, bottom of the ninth in the World Series, down by 1, right? With a guy on first base, and I'm going to knock it out of the park, right? That's long-term visualization. And I talk to clients about this a lot. You're celebrating, it's New Year's Eve, you're in Hawaii with your family and so I think, that's important. And there's also the short-term visualization, which could be, my listing appointment tonight, I'm dressed appropriately, I prepare, I get to the house on time, the buyers, we have rapport instantly, they don't argue with me about the price, they sign for 6%, I get the listing, right? Easy peasy. That's short-term visualization. So that's how I generally, explain this topic. But what thoughts do you have?
I think you just nailed it with both of your examples, and seeing yourself doing it. Again, you're training your subconscious. And I think we all have said, if only I could see into their business. So and so successful agent, if only I could see what they're doing, I'd know how to do it. And is that true? That all you'd have to do is have a glance at their books or just watch them do the listing presentation once and you'd have it nailed? Maybe not, but this desire to see it is so strong, and we can create that for ourselves with visualization.
Good stuff. Reading, this is fairly self-explanatory, right? 10 minutes a day. I think I did a calculation a few years ago that if you read 10 minutes a day or about 10 pages a day, you could get through like 25 motivational or business books a year, just 10 minutes a day. And it's just so important. And it's easy to get in the habit of not doing it, right? Oh, I'll start reading tomorrow, right? And then the book just kind of sits on the shelf for for months. Light exercise and light breakfast. I think that that's fairly self-explanatory too. Some people want to do heavier exercise in the morning. We all know that what we perhaps don't want to do doing that first thing is most important, right? Because the events of the day get in the way, and then suddenly you don't get it done. So kind of just eating that frog in the morning is not a bad idea.
And those who may not have a strong exercise routine right now, they're not putting in an hour or going to the gym or something. The thing that light exercise can be is just some stretching, which really helps to get your blood circulating, helps you to think more clearly. I was just looking on my phone for the app. There's a 7-minute exercise workout app.
Okay.
You know, just if you just did that 7 minutes of getting the blood flowing, it helps you to think more clearly.
Good. Get to the office by blank AM. Now, this could be down the hall, or when our offices are open again, it could be down the street. If it's down the hall, I would suggest to you that it's important to be showered, dressed professionally. If you wear makeup, the makeup's on. In other words, all of the steps to being successful that you would normally do. If you're working from home that day, you still need to do it. If you just shuffle out of bed and put on your sweatpants and you have bedhead and it's time to prospect, you know, one of my concerns is your head just isn't there, right? So your thoughts on, and we don't really have it here. I mean, I think the idea here is if you go through this routine, then your head is going to be in the right space. But, you know, getting dressed for the day, right? I mean, you don't, do this show on a t-shirt. And I imagine when the show's over, you don't go change and do a t-shirt and do your coaching calls, right? I mean, you're dressed, at least business casual for the day, and then your mind and brain, and you know that you're going to work, right? So any thoughts there?
I think I can totally hear someone pushing back on me and saying something like Gary Vaynerchuk lives in a t-shirt, and so did Steve Jobs. But the truth is, dressing for the job that you want really has a huge psychological effect, not only on you, but on the people who see you. And I learned this from someone that I worked for years ago, that it was about discipline, that appearance of self-discipline has its own message to the listener, to the viewer, right? If I show up like I don't care about this, what else do I know? About, right? So I think there's something to be, but we're off on dress, and that's not what this was. This is about getting to the office. It's so tough for most of us in real estate to control our time. To be able to say, no matter what, I have a hard start, can be a really helpful way to not let your day get away from you. You and I both know we've got people who say, I can't figure it out. I can't fill my pipeline, can't hit my goals. Well, when does your day start? Oh, about 11 o'clock. And I'm thinking, what do you do before that? I think having a hard start can be a really beneficial thing.
Well, and it's a few notches down here, but the scheduled aggressive role play, if you're doing that on Zoom and you have a different role play partner, let's say every day, and you start at 8:30, your face is on, you're dressed, you're in front of the camera at 8:30, period, right? I mean, every morning my coaching calls either start at 8 or 7:25. I'm not phoning it in at 7:25. We don't do calls on the phone anymore, right? I got to be ready to go. I'm showered, I'm up, and I'm ready to go. So sometimes having those appointments kind of forces you to, it's not 11 o'clock, it's, 8:30, every morning I'm doing role play. Review daily hot sheets, new listings, price reductions. In other words, knowing the market. More than ever, right?
I watched the most powerful call with some luxury agents, and they were talking about how do you break into luxury? How do you dominate in luxury? And my takeaway was less about the high end than it was about doing your ding dang job. They said you have to know your stuff. You have to know it cold. And they were because they were talking about luxury. They were saying that some of them will spend hours preparing a listing presentation and never show any of what they prepared because the client's just not interested. And they never regret the 4 hours of prep because that's what was necessary, was to be that prepared. So I just started thinking about how much emphasis do we all put on knowing the stats, knowing the numbers, knowing the market. And we're all like, well, if somebody asks, I'll check. And if we had that be a part of our daily routine, your skill, how much more rapidly it would grow. And then the influence you have on potential clients, really powerful.
Yeah. And I think that, once we get quote unquote back to normal, you've got to know your numbers. If you're in a farm, you've got to, I mean, if you run into somebody at the grocery store, how's the market? It's okay. Right. I mean, it'd be nice to actually be able to say, oh yeah, that house that's like, behind you, you know what they got for that? Right. I mean, that is knowing the market. And that is when people become impressed with us. So 15 minutes of scheduled aggressive role play. I like to joke that there's two dirty words in real estate. One is role play and the other one is accountability.
Ooh.
And both of these just scare the heck out of people. And I've never really understood why.
Okay.
With the role play, I'd much rather, an agent that I know, coach, whatever, manage, go mess up in front of a peer and not in front of the seller who's looking to pay you $30,000 for a part-time job.
Yeah.
It really is a no-brainer if you put it that way, right? Okay, if you knew you were going to lose 2 of the next 5 listing appointments because you weren't prepared, which 2 would you choose to lose, right? Or does it make sense to do the 15 minutes of aggressive role play? And Tom Ferry talks a lot about aggressive role play, and he doesn't care if you've been in the business for 5 minutes or 50 years, you're doing it every day.
Yep.
And, it's just so important. And, then we hear the objection over scripts, right? I don't like scripts, right? I don't want to sound scripted.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Oh my goodness. I love it that you brought this up. And I am that agent. I paid for scripts. I paid for coaching. I was given all these things and I hated them all. And I just resisted them with every ounce of this goes way back early in my career. And we had an accountability group at our office and somebody invited the top producer. They got Ted to come speak. And we're like, even I was in awe. Oh my God, it's Ted. We're so excited. And he just drilled on morning routine. And we're like, okay. And he was just like, I do this. And then he said, I can give you my script. I mean, do you guys want that? And we're all just like, oh my goodness, yes, here, let me throw money. And he recited it off the top of his head. And it was my favorite hated script from my coach that I refused to use verbatim. Wow. It was the same one. And my takeaway was, I'm overthinking it. He does 4 times as many transactions as the average agent in my office. We were so honored to have him come and share his secrets. And all he said is, I'm absolutely routine. I always role play. After years, he was still role playing with a partner.
Yep.
And he was making his calls. And he was making 3 hours of calls a day. But he would call expireds and FSBOs and past clients in Sphere every single day, and he would just dial for dollars. Now, it wasn't my style, and I wouldn't have done it his way. But I wouldn't have done it his way. I'm not him, and that's okay. So those of you who are just like me, kicking and screaming and saying, I don't want to be scripted, try it your way, try it his way, don't stop trying. That's the secret. You make 2 phone calls, you make 1 hour's worth of phone calls, and you decide it doesn't work, it's because you didn't practice enough.
Right. Good. Hour of power and follow-ups. So prospecting, right? Hour of power is how we define prospecting.
So I had a coaching client. I had given her a challenge because she just was overthinking everything. And I gave her a challenge to sprint through her database.
Okay.
I said, call and call and call and call and call and just say, hi, how are you?
Right.
Do that. Say, hi, how are you? Call as many as you humanly possible and report back to me how many you did. Just sprint, flat out. She had not made a single call. And her reason was she had an inspection. It was 7 days.
Yeah.
You're laughing. I hope those of you watching are laughing, thinking that's ridiculous, but it's not. Most of us are full of excuses like that.
Right.
The most important block in your schedule is the lead generation. People say, you can hold me accountable to writing a contract this afternoon for my buyer. Oh, can I?
Right.
I don't think you need a coach for that, right? Writing the contracts will take care of themselves. You also don't need an accountability partner to show up at closing.
Right.
These are the things that you really need to focus on. And if you're resisting, look at where that resistance is coming from and give yourself a little more practice.
Good. Track your numbers.
We're
gonna be having a whole other day on this, right? A whole other show on tracking. I don't know when that is. It's later this week or next week, but so briefly, I don't want to run out of time. Track your numbers. Yep.
Right. So if you wait, if you say, okay, that's fine, I'll do it at the end of the month, well, you won't be able to, right? So whether it's in a notebook, it's in your
Yep.
CRM, and we'll talk about CRM, we'll talk about all these other tools, but it's basic things, guys. And I had a mastermind call on tracking numbers. Gosh, what's today? It was yesterday, Monday. And it was really fantastic. The one woman does it in 15 minutes a week. The other woman said, no, I spend an entire hour on Sunday, and she talked about the many tracks. But the truth is, it's not the end of the world, and it's not that much, and it will save you more than it costs you. So, yeah.
Yeah, if we don't track, we can't plan.
Yep.
You just can't, right? You end up using these general formulas that may not apply to you. I was talking to a client earlier today who's going to sell 200 houses this year, and he tracks his transactions, right, which is great, but he doesn't track his conversations.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then we're going to continue to use 40 conversations to one deal, right? And I know that's not accurate for you, right? For your team, it's probably higher because they're new. For you, it's probably lower. We're not going to know until you figure out a way to track. And a free tracker, we'll talk about this during business planning tomorrow. You can get the Illume app, tomferry.com, to track an appointment or conversation. The app's on the phone. You just click the plus button. Plus, right? And it's easy peasy. Check in on pendings, meet with an assistant. I like to tell everybody that they have an assistant, right? They have a member of their team, whether it's, the title agent, the stager, the home inspector, the lender, right? We all have people on our team. Any other comments on that?
Well, I think you're making a really good point that we do have more people who support us than maybe we realize. Yeah. But I think when this very item, which is check in on pendings, if you don't have an assistant, you are an assistant, okay? So the truth is the person who's checking in on the pendings is you, and the person who's scheduling the inspection is you. And so if you don't have an assistant, you are one. You still need that checkup from the neck up with your assistant self to make sure all your current contracts are on track.
Right. And like we've been saying, especially during COVID, we need to be in touch with the lenders more often than perhaps we were used to doing, right? Whether they're our lender for our buyer, or if you're the listing agents, you still got to be in touch with that buyer's lender, right? We don't want any surprises.
Go ahead.
The
checklist that we're going to share, you need to be following a standard protocol. I think most of us struggle when the phone blows up because a deal is blowing up.
Right.
This went sideways. So-and-so didn't have an expectation met. If we're following a standard protocol, we're managing those things before they happen. And that's what happens in that time.
Yep. Good. 2 social media posts per day. Talk to me about that. I can hear people saying right now, oh my gosh, that's too many.
Well, and this is just an approximate, right? Everybody does things differently. But if you're posting something motivational or positive or personal and something really genuinely helpful around real estate, and we've also shared my checklist for the distribution of personal and professional and what that can look like. Right. You can talk a lot about real estate and be interesting and helpful and not be obnoxious. 2 a day can be just really doable.
And we have a social media calendar that we put out once a month. I believe that's available on theallegianceway.com. By the way, this checklist is also on theallegianceway.com. You click on checklist. It's been there. This is not new. We're just going over it during Dominate. Go on an appointment. That's really that's what all of this leads up to, right? The hour of power and prospecting and stuff. It's to get in front of people. It's to go on an appointment. What do you have to add to that?
Well, everybody measures them differently. I like to call appointments first-time meetings with a buyer or seller or a potential seller. To me, that's what an appointment is. Yep. So if I did those 5 or 7 days a week for my business plan, that's a lot of appointments. Yeah. You decide what that means for you. It doesn't mean showing appointment.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Or dentist appointment.
Right.
The one in between all of those that I've seen people lump together with first time meeting a buyer appointment and first time meeting a seller appointment is they lump in a coffee or a lunch with somebody in your sphere.
Right.
I think that's a really valuable thing to do, but I like to call it a coffee rather than calling it an appointment, because to me an appointment is somebody said they're interested in buying or they said they're interested in selling and we sat down and talked about it. What about you, Charlie? How do you quantify that?
So I would count that coffee as an appointment. So I think the lesson here is decide what you're going to do and just stick with it. And then if you have an accountability partner, hopefully you all do, right? Let them know how you're defining some of this stuff, because there is no black and white. But yeah, if Although the caveat is, if you're going out to lunch or dinner or coffee with a past client or Sphere member, I think you gotta ask for business in some way, or it does not count as an appointment, right? That's me. So you and I are slightly different there, but
Well, and for me, the thing of it is, and I'm not the ultimate tracker, but
yeah,
I want to be able to track the effectiveness of my actions.
right,
So if I go on 50 listing appointments and I get 48 of them, I need to be able to track that, right? Or if I only get half of them, what
yep,
needs to change about my presentation model? If I'm going on a ton of buyer appointments and hardly anybody ever converts, why is that? Am
right,
I not
agreed.
doing pre-qualifying over the phone? What is that about? And if I'm just calling them all appointments, and I'm not looking back at, I have coffees and lunches and I put out money for food all the time and nobody ever refers me, like, to me they're distinct.
I'm not saying that you should be so super generalized on the actual tracking,
Yeah.
right? We're over time. Afternoon follow-up session. What do you have for us there?
I don't know. What is that?
I think it's just, people that you're calling during the hour of power. Maybe you leave a message or you text, send a video text, they get back to you. You want to follow up, deal doctoring, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
So, in other words, get back on the phone in the afternoon. That would be my takeaway from this last item on this checklist.
Yeah. So, and if you're overwhelmed at all, just pick one, do it for a week or two, add one. You can build this slowly over time. The greatest, most successful agents and teams did not just launch any of this whole cloth.
Right. Yep, exactly. Tomorrow, business planning. Looking forward to doing that. Amy, always good to see you. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.